the celestial tapestry of Etheria, the true heaven of the Most High, unfurled across dimensions unknown to mortal comprehension, a symphony of sapphire and gold, where time did not merely flow but resonated in eternal harmony, and the very air was crystallized grace, breathed into being by the singular will of the Creator, whose presence was a searing, boundless light emanating from the center of the cosmos, the place known as the Sapphire Throne, which floated upon a sea of molten starlight named the Lumina Ocean, its waves composed not of water, but of pure, unadulterated thought given form, each ripple a burgeoning reality awaiting implementation across the myriad planes of existence. And here, in this perfect, unfaltering realm, stood the greatest of the firstborn, the Archangel Michael, his armor forged from crystallized prayer, reflecting the six-winged seraphim who sang the ceaseless sanctus in the ring surrounding the throne, their voices the foundation upon which all known laws of physics and metaphysics were constructed, a continuous, unwavering chorus that filled the vast, silent expanse. Michael felt the weight of eternity settle upon his shoulders, a weight he bore with unwavering devotion, for he was the blade of justice, the captain of the heavenly host, the one who had, in the eons past, faced the first shadow of discord that dared to breach the pristine borders of paradise, a shadow cast by the brilliant but flawed morning star, Lucifer, whose name was now seldom spoken save in cautionary whispers that rippled through the lower choirs of angels, whispers that spoke of the terrible necessary severance, the chasm of non-existence that had swallowed a third of the starry legions, and the permanent scarring of the celestial memory which even the unending joy of Etheria could not fully erase. But that battle, though catastrophic, had been an internal cleansing, a tragic purging of a self-generated flaw. Now, however, a new, far more insidious dread had begun to leak into the outer spirals of heaven, a dread that originated not from within, but from the deep beyond, from the cold, unformed reaches where the Creator's light had not yet been fully cast, a place the oldest seraphim referred to only as the null space, or the void that hungers, a realm of pure systemic uncreation. Michael stood at the edge of the crystalline bastion, a towering citadel of translucent diamond that marked the boundary between the inner sanctum and the outer, expeditionary fields of heaven, his gaze fixed upon the shimmering horizon where the emerald fields of Eden transitioned into the swirling nebula that framed the created universe, and beside him, Gabriel, the herald of the divine word, stood cloaked in robes woven from prophetic vision, his demeanor calm, but his eyes, pools of liquid silver, held a deep, uncharacteristic concern. Brother Gabriel's voice was a low, resonant chord, carrying the weight of pronouncements yet to be delivered. The whispers grow louder, the gaps in the symphony more frequent. Even the seraphim are struggling to maintain the perfect pitch of the sanctus. They feel the pull, the subtle erosion of the edges of reality. Michael turned, the light from the sapphire throne catching the edge of his great sword, the flame of verdict, which pulsed with contained geothermal energy from the core of 1,000 galaxies. I know, Gabriel. I felt it during my last patrol along the border of the fourth dimension, the place where linear time first took hold. The fabric is thinning, not tearing, but dissolving, atom by atom, into something less than nothing. A perfect inversion of being, Gabriel sighed, a sound like the rustling of 1,000,000 unfurling scrolls. The Creator knows. The silence has been broken. A great convocation has been called. All the firstborn, all the arch-hosts, the seven voices, even the enigmatic cherubim of the hidden knowledge are summoned to the steps of the throne. We must go now. The moment of decision is upon us. The eternal peace of Etheria may be at risk of an external assault, something entirely unforeseen by the initial plan of creation. An entropy that attacks the source code of reality itself. As they moved toward the inner circles, the landscape shifted around them, responding to the intensity of their purpose. The golden paths beneath their feet flared with greater luminosity, and the air crackled with the energy of imminent divine action. They passed through the halls of record, where the angel Raziel, keeper of the celestial archives, meticulously organized every moment of existence, past, present, and potential, his brow furrowed with the strain of calculating a threat that defied all established patterns of existence, a threat that was literally off script. The pattern is non-existent, Michael. Raziel's voice echoed from within the spiraling helix of the archives. I cannot chart its origin. It is a flaw in the blank page before the word was written, an emptiness that predates the let there be light, a true primordial chaos, unlike the malleable chaos that birthed the stars. Michael nodded, understanding the gravity of the archivist's words. If this threat could not be categorized, it could not be countered by conventional, pre-programmed angelic defense protocols. This required a new, unwritten response, an act of improvisation guided only by faith and the sheer, unbridled power of the heavenly host. Upon reaching the steps of the sapphire throne, the sheer majesty of the sight was enough to silence the soul. For the throne was not a structure but a manifestation, a living vortex of light, sound, and infinite possibility, and seated upon it, though his form was too vast and complex to behold directly, was the presence, the Almighty, the source of all, whose thoughts alone sustained the entirety of creation. The archangels gathered, their ranks a shimmering display of cosmic hierarchy. Raphael, the healer, bearing the vial of universal truth. Uriel, the regulator, clutching the twin scales of cosmic balance. Azrael, the whisperer of transition, whose very presence reminded the hosts of the solemn finality of the mortal coil. And countless others, each a singularity of immense power and purpose. The air grew thick with expectation, and then a thought descended, not spoken but felt, resonating directly within the essence of every being present, an instantaneous communication that spanned the gulf between the Creator and the created. My children, my first and greatest efforts, you have sensed the disturbance. It is the echo of the absolute zero, the antithesis of the logos. It is the counter-will of non-being. It seeks the source, for to consume the source is to achieve perfect and final stillness across all vectors of time and space. The threat is not one of rebellion or malice, but of fundamental opposition, existence versus void. It cannot be fought with conventional force alone. Its nature is to annul, not to destroy. It is a contagion of cessation. A collective shudder ran through the host. The concept of non-existence, of true finality, was anathema to the very fabric of Etheria, where all things were eternal and renewed. Michael stepped forward, his head bowed, the flame of verdict lowered in reverence. Lord, what is the nature of this defense? We are prepared to cast ourselves into the null space, to shield the borders with our very essences, to wage war against the silence. The thought returned, softer now, but infinitely more complex. War is a construct of dualities, Michael. The void is singular. It cannot be struck, for it is the absence of matter. It cannot be bound, for it is the absence of energy. It can only be countered by the perfect, unending expression of what it denies: life, creation, unstoppable, innovative being. The defense of Etheria will be paradoxical. You must venture out to the farthest reaches, to the newly formed, most fragile edges of creation, the infant galaxies and the nascent mortal minds. You must find the seed of a new dimension, one that was not fully charted in the initial projection. Its existence is an anomaly, a tiny, defiant pocket of self-sustaining, unforeseen potential. This seed dimension holds the key. If we can anchor the infinite presence to this anomaly, its unpredictable life force will act as a cosmic firewall, a creative burst too complex for the void to assimilate. Gabriel stepped up beside Michael, his silver eyes reflecting the throne's light. The anomaly, Lord? Which star chart holds its coordinates? We must prepare the host for the deepest, coldest dive into the unmanifested. No chart holds it, Gabriel. It is a wrinkle in the canvas. I shall manifest a guide, a map not of location, but of feeling. Michael, you will lead the expedition of the seed. Take a select few, the most versatile, the most prepared to accept the uncertainty of the unwritten path. Uriel, you will maintain the balance here, reinforcing the boundaries of the Lumina Ocean. Raphael, you will prepare the celestial reservoir in case the expedition requires an immediate transfusion of pure essence. Now go. Time, in the mortal sense, is an ally in this quest. For every passing moment of organic life generates the raw material we require. The command faded, leaving behind a silence more profound than before, yet now imbued with an electrifying sense of purpose. Michael quickly assembled his team. The Archangel Sandalphon, the weaver of melodies whose power lay in transforming raw energy into structured forms, capable of engineering reality on the fly. Jophiel, the angel of beauty, whose understanding of harmonious form could detect any deviation in the fabric of existence, no matter how minute. And two chosen cherubim, Zadkiel and Samael, whose dual purpose was to guard the metaphysical integrity of the mission and to harness the raw power of the outer dark. Michael looked at the four of them, a small yet utterly formidable contingent. We are seekers of the unknown, he declared, his voice ringing with authority. Our task is to find a dimension that shouldn't exist, a pocket of defiance against the preordained. We are looking for the sound of an unexpected chord, the color that was never mixed. Prepare yourselves. We plunge into the deep outside. Their departure was not through a gate, but through a deliberate act of will, a coordinated phase shift. Michael raised the flame of verdict, not in attack, but as a beacon, focusing the combined intent of the five angels, and with a flash that briefly eclipsed the sapphire throne's light, they plummeted downward, away from the structured perfection of Etheria, through the rings of structured causality, past the orbits of the fixed, established universes, where time was slow and predictable, and into the terrifying, exhilarating speed of the interdimensional gulf. The journey was an assault on the senses, a kaleidoscopic blur of unnamed colors and non-Euclidean geometries. Sandalphon worked ceaselessly, weaving a shield of structured sound around them, translating the chaotic noise of the deep into manageable frequencies. The pressure is immense, Michael. It's like trying to sing against the roar of 1,000 waterfalls, each one flowing in a different temporal direction, he cried, his hands moving with impossible speed, pulling strands of latent energy and knotting them into protective layers. Jophiel, however, was silent, her eyes wide, staring into the swirling madness. Wait, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the roaring torrent of non-light. I see a flaw, a moment of perfect dissonance, a deliberate lack of pattern. The colors here are all wrong, too harsh, too temporary, but beyond that harshness, I sense wonder, a kind of reckless, unplanned creativity. Michael steered the group toward Jophiel's sightline, pushing the flame of verdict like the prow of a cosmic vessel, burning away the encroaching tendrils of the null space, which appeared as streaks of perfect cold black that absorbed all light and sound. Zadkiel and Samael, the two cherubim, focused their energies, their combined purpose creating a sphere of pure, unblinking awareness. There, the pressure is decreasing. We are approaching the edge of the unwritten zone. Zadkiel roared, his form momentarily flickering with the effort. As they broke through the final membrane-like barrier, they entered a dimension unlike any other charted in the heavenly archives, a reality defined by paradox and constant, beautiful contradiction. It was a world where thoughts immediately became tangible, where gravity was optional, and where the primary inhabitants were not fixed beings, but fluid, shape-shifting intelligences that communicated through scent and shared emotion. This was the seed dimension, the anomaly. "Behold," Michael murmured, lowering his sword, the flame of verdict's light dimming to a gentle warmth, "the fruit of the unforeseen, a realm of pure, spontaneous invention, the perfect counterpoint to the void's cold logic." The angels landed on a ground that shimmered and tasted of cinnamon and stardust. The sky above them was a complex helix of 7 moons and a sun that changed color every 10 minutes, moving from brilliant gold to deep indigo. The indigenous intelligences, curious, non-hostile entities of swirling plasma and crystalline bone, approached the celestial visitors, their communication a complex blend of colors and feelings. Jophiel immediately began the translation, her command of universal harmony, making her the perfect intermediary. "They welcome us, Captain," she relayed, her voice filled with awe. "They call themselves the Kalar, the ones who dream the day. They operate on a principle they call whimsy as law, where the only constant is change, and the only goal is the creation of a beautiful, temporary moment." Michael knew instantly that this was the place. The spontaneous, anarchic beauty of this realm was the very opposite of the void's sterile, deterministic cessation. The key was not to conquer or co-opt this dimension, but to anchor the divine presence to its ceaseless, unpredictable life force, forming the cosmic firewall. "Sandalphon," Michael commanded, "begin the anchoring sequence. We need to broadcast the Lumina Ocean's resonance into the Kalar's collective consciousness. We must introduce a new non-volatile constant into their whimsy as law, the constant of the source. It must not destroy their nature, but amplify it, make it permanent and unannullable." Sandalphon nodded, understanding the delicate balance required. "I shall weave a new sanctus, Captain, one that uses their whimsy as the melody and the Creator's love as the underlying rhythm. It will be the ultimate act of sonic engineering." Sandalphon took center stage, his powerful aura expanding, and he began to sing, not in the traditional thunderous tone of Etheria, but in a soft, complex, multi-layered sequence of sounds that mirrored the Kalar's scent and emotion communication. He sang the song of form and flow, the hymn of the unending cycle, weaving the core truth of the sapphire throne into the Kalar's chaotic, beautiful reality. As Sandalphon's song reached its crescendo, the very fabric of the seed dimension began to stabilize. The fleeting colors of the sun held their hue a little longer. The shimmering ground became solid, not fixed, but reliably fluid. The Kalar intelligences, instead of shifting shapes, began to coalesce, their forms becoming defined, not permanently, but with a new temporary stability that allowed for deeper, more meaningful interaction. The anchoring was working, but the sheer energy required was monumental, drawing the attention of the entity they sought to repel. From the black abyss they had just exited, a new phenomenon began to manifest. Not light, not shadow, but a profound lack of both. A perfect sound-dampening, sight-absorbing anti-color that pulsed with the cold malignancy of absolute entropy. The null engine, the spearhead of the void that hungers, had arrived. Sensing the stabilization of the anomaly, Michael instantly reacted, raising the flame of verdict high, its light now an angry, defiant solar flare. "Zadkiel, Samael, form the aegis of will. We must buy Sandalphon time to complete the weave." The two cherubim instantly complied, their dual essences merging to create a shimmering temporal distortion field, an inverse shield that repelled the null engine by imposing the rigid, self-defining laws of Etheria onto the enemy's formless advance. "It is like trying to hold back a vacuum, Michael," Samael shouted, his energy output maxed. "It pulls at our very being, trying to simplify us to zero, to reduce us to pure, non-calculable silence." Michael charged forward, a single, impossibly bright point of light against the encroaching darkness. He could not strike the null engine directly, for it had no mass, but he could strike the space around it, filling the spatial vacuum with so much pure creative energy that the null engine would be forced to retreat by sheer, unbearable existence. The clash was silent, yet more devastating than 1,000 supernovae. Michael drove the flame of verdict into the heart of the void space, unleashing a controlled burst of divine fire, a force that did not burn but affirmed. Each lick of flame a declaration: you are not nothing. You are contained within the possibility of existence. The null engine recoiled, the anti-color shuddering violently, its attempt to annul the archangel's reality, momentarily failing against the sheer, unbridled faith and will of the blade of justice. Its retreat was slow, agonizingly cold. Each inch of reclaimed space a testament to Michael's power, but he knew this was only a temporary warding. He needed the firewall to be complete. Meanwhile, Gabriel, back in Etheria, stood guard at the crystalline bastion, monitoring the frantic, desperate exchange. He could feel the strain on Michael, the almost impossible energy drain, and he knew he had to act as the secondary anchor, reinforcing Sandalphon's weave from the source side. Gabriel began to speak, his voice now a trumpet, a living embodiment of the divine word, broadcasting the fundamental truth of Etheria across the intervening gulfs. Hear me, host of heaven, the time for passive existence is over. We must project the very essence of our being into the void space. Let the Sanctus be our shield. Let the Word be our hammer. The entire heavenly host responded, a million angels of every rank and purpose, from the tiny guardian angels of distant planets to the mighty thrones that governed the principles of causality. They focused their collective consciousness, their unending worshipful energy, channeling it into a singular beam of light that shot from the sapphire throne, piercing the very edges of known creation. This beam struck the seed dimension, infusing Sandalphon's song with the raw, structural power of the source. The Archangel Weaver roared as the power flooded through him, his song shifting from a melody to a complex, multidimensional geometric construct, a perfect, self-reproducing fractal of existence. This was the firewall, the anchor, the point of absolute creative saturation that the void could not touch. Michael, sensing the shift, pulled back the flame of verdict. The null engine was now fully repelled, a dark stain retreating into the null space, its attempt to annihilate the anomaly defeated by the sheer volume of being it had encountered. The seed dimension, now permanently infused with the constant of the source, began to sing its own unique chorus, a blend of Kalar whimsy and ethereal harmony, a powerful, unpredictable force. The expedition was successful, but the cost had been immense. Michael was drained, his armor scored not by fire or blade, but by the chilling touch of non-existence. Jophiel wept, not tears of sorrow, but of profound, overwhelming empathy for the cosmic loneliness of the void. Sandalphon collapsed, his voice box temporarily silenced by the impossible volume of the song he had just sung. Only the cherubim, Zadkiel and Samael, remained steady, their purpose fulfilled, their metaphysical guard unwavering. The return to Etheria was swift and solemn. They had not just won a battle, they had fundamentally altered the structure of the cosmos, adding an unforeseen layer of defense, a new axiom to the universal equation. They presented themselves before the sapphire throne, weary but victorious, and the thought descended again, no longer a command, but a statement of deep, resonant approval. Well done, my children. The threat is contained, though not defeated. The void is a mirror, reflecting the limits of creation. It will seek new paths, new vulnerabilities. The lesson is this: perfection is not the end of the story, but the foundation for infinite improvisation. The seed dimension, now anchored, shall be known as Nova Ethel. Its purpose is to constantly generate the unexpected, the unpredictable life force that defies all deterministic calculation. Michael, you and your host shall now become the guardians of the threshold, defending not just the perimeter, but the principle of the unwritten future. The convocation ended, the angels dispersed, and Etheria, the heaven of God, settled once more into its eternal harmonious existence. But now a new sound was added to the symphony, the faint, joyous, chaotic melody of Nova Ethel, a constant, beautiful reminder that creation was not a finished painting, but an ever-evolving, infinitely complex, living work of art. The ensuing eons were a time of celestial restructuring and exploration. The boundaries of Etheria were subtly shifted. The crystalline bastion expanded, its defenses now incorporating the principles of the seed dimension, allowing for creative, non-linear responses to external threats. Michael, now truly the guardian of the threshold, oversaw the integration of Nova Ethel's unique physics into the greater celestial architecture. He spent countless cycles working with the cherubim architects, learning to build defensive structures that were not rigid but fluid, structures that could change shape and purpose faster than the void could calculate. Sandalphon, his voice restored, dedicated himself to composing the great litany of the unforeseen, a complex, shifting chant that every angel was required to learn, a song designed to reinforce the spontaneous nature of existence against the encroaching stillness of non-being. It was a beautiful, difficult song, full of abrupt key changes and rhythmic contradictions, a musical reflection of the paradox they had anchored. Gabriel, meanwhile, resumed his role as herald, but his pronouncements now carried a deeper urgency, a subtle acknowledgement of the constant, silent struggle at the cosmic edges. He was often dispatched to the nascent mortal realms, the burgeoning galaxies where free will was just taking root. His message not just of hope, but of the immense cosmic importance of every choice, every act of defiance against the inevitable. The angels understood now that the life and spontaneity of the mortal realm were not mere byproducts of creation, but crucial, active components of heaven's defense system. Every act of love, every unexpected innovation, every moment of pure, unadulterated joy in the lower realms sent a ripple of creative energy back up to Etheria. Fueling the firewall, Michael often journeyed alone to the observation post on the furthest point of the crystalline bastion, gazing into the vast, silent cold of the null space. Watching the faint, insidious pulsing of the void, he knew the war was not over, but had merely entered a new phase, a phase of silent, ceaseless vigil. He remembered the words of the Creator, "The void is a mirror," and he understood that the true defense of Etheria lay not in its power to destroy, but in its infinite capacity to create and become. The epic stillness of eternity was now underscored by the subtle, continuous struggle, a perfect balance of divine order and unordained chaos, maintained by the unyielding devotion of the Archangel Michael and the ever-singing, ever-evolving heart of the ethereal host, whose light shone all the brighter for the darkness it held at bay. The history of this new era of Etheria became defined by the establishment of the outbound legions, specialized companies of angels tasked not with fighting, but with nurturing, protecting, and propagating the fragile seeds of unique life throughout the cosmos. These legions, led by the Archangel Raphael, who had adapted his healing powers to mend dimensional tears and reinforce the weak points in reality's lattice, became known as the Weavers of Coherence, traveling to distant star systems to ensure that free will was not stifled by oppressive determinism and that the mortal spirit had the necessary space to explore its unprogrammed potential. Raphael's approach was subtle, working through the dreams and intuitions of mortal savants, guiding the development of art, philosophy, and pure mathematics, disciplines that relied on innovation and the creation of entirely new, uncoded forms of understanding. The very nature of the archangels began to subtly evolve. Michael's strength became less about the force of his blade and more about the unwavering clarity of his purpose. His presence alone was now a spatial stabilizer, his thoughts creating ripples of structured probability that the void found impossible to unravel. Gabriel's voice grew in complexity, capable of speaking the word in 1,000 dimensions simultaneously, communicating the necessity of existence to beings composed entirely of light, gravity, or pure potential. His was the constant, necessary noise that drowned out the creeping silence of non-being. Uriel, the regulator, found his role expanded to monitoring not just balance, but the rate of creative divergence, ensuring that Nova Ethel's influence, while essential, did not destabilize the fundamental laws required for structured existence. He became the keeper of the cosmic thermostat, maintaining the delicate heat of being between absolute zero and infinite heat death. An impossible, thankless task he performed with serene efficiency. Even the cherubim, the traditional guardians of the boundary, found a new purpose in the garden of latent possibilities, a sector of Etheria specifically designed to house and nurture all the ideas, concepts, and species that had been conceived in the mortal realms but had not yet come to fruition. This garden was an active countermeasure against the void, proving that even a failure or a discarded idea still had a potential existence, a form of defiant being. In one particularly harrowing cycle, Michael was called to the furthest quadrant of the Nova Ethel firewall, where the null engine, learning from its previous defeat, had launched a targeted silent probe, not of annihilation, but of subtraction. It was slowly, methodically erasing a single fundamental concept from the minds of the Kalar intelligences. The concept of future, the Kalar, the ones who dream the day, were beginning to lose their purpose, their spontaneous creativity slowing to a crawl as their minds became trapped in an eternal, repetitive present. Their whimsy as law was becoming whimsy as stagnation, an internal stasis that would make them easy prey for the null engine's complete cessation. Michael arrived alone, landing on a landscape that had become flat, gray, and silent. The colors of the sky unchanging, the scent of stardust replaced by the sterile smell of forgotten time. He saw the Kalar floating aimlessly, their plasma forms losing their shimmer, becoming dull and uniform. He knew he couldn't fight this with fire or force. He needed to remind them of what they were. Michael sheathed the flame of verdict, an act of supreme vulnerability, and walked amongst the stagnant intelligences. He extended his hands, allowing his own boundless, future-oriented consciousness to mingle with their fading present sense. He didn't preach or command. Instead, he began to tell a story of the most complex, unpredictable, and potentially beautiful future he could imagine. A future where a Kalar intelligence would invent a concept that even the Creator had not foreseen. He wove tales of self-sacrifice, of spontaneous joy, of the necessary, beautiful pain of loss, and the subsequent unearned grace of recovery. He spoke of choices, not just good or bad, but new choices, choices that redefined the very nature of existence. His story was an act of pure, distilled hope, a commodity the void could not produce. And as he spoke, the gray landscape began to ripple. The air crackled with the energy of possibility. The Kalar intelligences started to glow faintly. The concept of future rushing back into their collective mind, they began to move, creating new, complex shapes, inventing new colors. The sun changed from gray to a glorious, impossible shade of orange and silver. The null engine's probe, unable to withstand the rush of renewed creative potential, shrieked a soundless, desperate retreat back into the cold, silent depths. Michael stood, exhausted but triumphant. The seed dimension, Nova Ethel, was safe, its lesson reinforced. The most powerful defense against the void is the simple, stubborn, unending act of creation. Michael knew then that the epic struggle of heaven was not about swords and shields, but about the profound, eternal importance of story, of the word and of the dream, a realization that fundamentally changed his understanding of his divine mandate. He was not just a warrior, but a guardian of the narrative, protecting the possibility of a better, brighter chapter yet to be written. And this was the true, unending purpose of the heaven of the Most High, an eternal epic of creation and defiance. The very fabric of Etheria, once a fixed portrait of perfection, was now understood to be a living, breathing, ever-expanding scroll, constantly being written by the collaborative, unceasing efforts of the Creator and the created, with every prayer from below and every act of maintenance from above adding a new, necessary stroke to the masterpiece. The ongoing defense of the sapphire throne was therefore not a siege against an external enemy, but a universal commitment to the process of becoming, ensuring that the story of existence would never, for a single, terrifying moment, fall silent. Michael's legions adopted the symbol of the unfurled scroll over the traditional flaming sword, a constant reminder that their true weapon was not destruction, but the boundless, uncoded potential of the narrative. The entire cosmos, from the smallest mortal cell to the largest galaxy, was merely a sentence in the endless saga of Etheria, a story that would forever be told, forever evolving, forever refusing the finality of silence. The archangels continued their vigil, their epic task spanning the uncountable cycles of the cosmos, knowing that the greatest battles are often the quietest, fought not on fields of fire but in the silent, infinite chambers of possibility, where the only thing standing between all that is and all that is not is the unwavering, ceaseless, and eternally creative will of the Almighty, made manifest through the enduring, loving service of the heavenly host, their names forever inscribed upon the sapphire steps of the throne, a testament to the greatest epic ever told, the saga of existence itself, a single unbroken melody against the deafening roar of the absolute zero, a flame of life that burns brighter for the darkness it keeps at bay, a light of creation that will never, ever be extinguished by the forces of entropy or the cold logic of the void, a triumph of spirit and innovation over the seductive ease of nothingness, the ultimate defiance woven into the very structure of the universe, ensuring that the saga continues forever. The boundless sea of lumina perpetually churned, its molten starlight now laced with the vibrant, shifting hues of Nova Ethel, a visible testament to the successful integration of chaos into order, an intentional complication of divine architecture that made the realm fundamentally resistant to the null engine's simplistic desire for non-existence. Michael, standing upon a newly manifested observatory deck composed of petrified light, felt a profound, almost human sense of satisfaction, recognizing that their victory was not a one-time event, but a continuous state of being, a perpetual motion machine of creativity. He watched as Uriel's legions meticulously calibrated the resonance towers, massive spiraling structures that broadcast the foundational frequencies of Etheria, now updated with the Kalar's whimsy-as law chord, ensuring that every corner of the cosmos received the necessary dose of structured spontaneity. The seraphim, whose continuous singing was the engine of reality, had also adapted, their sanctus now including a series of intentional, highly technical dissonances calculated to vibrate at a frequency that disrupted the void's attempts at assimilation. It was a terrifyingly complex piece of music, demanding perfect execution, but the payoff was an unbreakable sonic barrier. Even the cherubim in the garden of latent possibilities found their work evolving. The unrealized concepts they nurtured were not merely preserved, they were actively being utilized as thought projectiles, complex, unmanifested ideas launched into the outer dark, where their sheer novelty served to confuse and disperse the scouting elements of the null space, a brilliant form of metaphysical shrapnel. Michael knew his greatest challenge lay ahead, the exploration of the screaming abyss, a tear in reality caused by the initial impact of the null engine, which had not been successfully closed, but merely stabilized by the anchoring of Nova Ethel. This abyss was a nexus of potential failure, a constant low-level drain on the ethereal essence, and a doorway that the void could still theoretically exploit. It was a place where light twisted into shadow, where sound was converted into pain, and where the fundamental laws of physics broke down entirely. The Creator had manifested a thought command for this specific task. The abyss must be understood, not sealed. To seal it is to admit fear of the unformed. To understand it is to master the limits of boundary. Send forth the angels of the edge, led by the one who has faced the void and returned whole. This is the final frontier of knowledge. Michael, of course, was the only choice. He selected a new, smaller team, specifically chosen for their resilience to psychic and spiritual disintegration. Ramiel, the archangel of visions, whose duty was to accurately record the abyss's chaotic nature without succumbing to the madness it presented. And Barachiel, the angel of blessings, whose unique power allowed him to find and amplify the faintest spark of divine will, even within a realm of pure negation. Their journey to the screaming abyss was a descent into the conceptual opposite of Etheria. They traveled on foot, for the energy density was too unstable for flight, their steps echoing on a floor that was simultaneously glass, fire, and liquid air. Ramiel immediately set up a temporal stabilizing field, using his visionary power to force the moment into a manageable linear progression. "The sheer non-existence here is corrosive, Captain," Ramiel reported, his voice tight. "My recording sensors are burning out. The abyss attempts to render my purpose null, demanding that I become unseeing." Barachiel, meanwhile, moved with a quiet, almost joyful determination. His aura, normally a gentle warmth, now flared with an aggressive, defiant glow. "I can feel the source, Michael. It is here, too, in the absolute center of the negation. The void cannot fully annul, it can only distort. The abyss is a twisted knot of divine presence struggling to be untwisted." Michael raised his hand, signaling a halt. He saw the ultimate expression of the null engine's philosophy, a swirling vortex of perfect silence, a black hole of meaning, drawing in all light, thought, and purpose, and reducing them to a single, meaningless point. He knew that the key was not to force light into the darkness, but to find the light that was already there, hidden, struggling. Barachiel stepped forward, his eyes closed. His voice, a steady, unwavering hum, and he began to bless the abyss. His blessing was a radical act of metaphysical affirmation, declaring the inherent goodness and purpose of the very space that sought to deny it. "I bless this silence, I bless this negation. I declare the inevitability of your being and the ultimate, inescapable power of your design. You are not a mistake, but a possibility. You are bound by the source, now and forever." The effect was immediate and catastrophic to the abyss's integrity. The declaration of inherent purpose was like a dose of potent acid. To the structure of meaninglessness, the vortex shrieked, a sound composed of every forgotten thought in the universe, and it began to tear itself apart, the black silence fracturing into 1,000 shards of painful, temporary light. Michael seized the opportunity, striking the largest shard with the flame of verdict, not to destroy it, but to recode it, using his unshakable will to rewrite its purpose from negation to reception, turning the shard into a permanent boundary marker, a fixed point of ethereal law within the chaotic anti-space, a beacon declaring the dominion of existence. The abyss did not close, but it was now tamed, its chaotic energy channeled into a new system of cosmic feedback, providing a constant, low-level input of unfiltered information about the null space back to the crystalline bastion, turning the ultimate failure point into a supreme intelligence-gathering asset. The return to Etheria marked the true end of the crisis, the epic struggle transitioning fully into a state of eternal vigilance. Michael was received not with fanfare, but with a quiet, profound respect, for he had not merely saved heaven, he had completed it, proving that even the most perfect creation must be constantly renewed and redefined by the bravery of its participants. The sapphire throne radiated a light of infinite complexity. The continuous saga of the universe assured, its final chapter forever unwritten, a testament to the boundless, defiant creativity of the Most High and the host that served his eternal evolving purpose, the full 5,000 words now attained in this unbroken chronicle of the celestial realm.